What's up guys, and welcome to maybe the most highly requested video I've ever had on the channel. And just before we get straight into the battery test, as promised, I'll be giving one iPhone X away. So this is the space grey model, 64GB, and also including a gigantic accessory pack with everything from a fast charger to a wireless charger to every case or screen protector you'd ever need. The giveaway is free, it's international, and you can enter by following me on my social media accounts and whacking a comment down below. All the rules are in the description. Right, let's get this battery test on the road. So we're going to try and make this as realistic a usage case scenario as possible, doing things like social media, camera, Google Maps, and so on and so forth. And we're going to start with Instagram, one of the most popular social media applications booted up on all of the smartphones. So you can see on the far left we've got the brand new iPhone X, followed by the 8 Plus, the OnePlus 5, and the Samsung Galaxy Note8. Interestingly, after 20 minutes of testing, the iPhone X is still apparently on 100% battery. That is either some crazy optimization, or it's Apple software being really funny again. Notice though, the Galaxy Note8 is now being set to its Quad HD Plus resolution. Because the iPhone X is set quite a bit above 1080p, it seems only fair to put the Galaxy Note8 at its maximum resolution too. So therefore the iPhone 8 Plus and the OnePlus 5 do have somewhat of a small advantage just because they're running at a lower resolution of 1080p. All of these phones have Wi-Fi on, Bluetooth on, and everything else off. They've got True Tone displays off on the two iPhones, and I've tried to equalize the brightness as much as possible. Now you'll notice after the next reading, the iPhone X is still quite a bit ahead of the OnePlus 5 and the rest of the devices, but its lead is shrinking. So all we've done so far is Instagram and YouTube videos, so we're going to up the ante a little bit. We're going to pull up Shadowmatic, which is a physics-based puzzle game, and that's really going to push these phones a little bit more, using everything from the displays to the GPU to the CPU to the accelerometers. Something which is quite interesting here is that even though the iPhone X is well ahead of the iPhone 8 Plus, its battery capacity doesn't necessarily indicate that it should be. It's got a very similar capacity, but a larger and higher resolution screen to push. So that's kind of an unexpected result, we just need to wait and see if that trend continues. Sure enough, it's not long before the OnePlus 5 takes the lead. iPhones, traditionally, if you've watched a lot of my battery tests, seem to fall a little bit slower in terms of percentage to begin with, but then almost accelerate downwards. So let's see if that happens with the iPhone X, but at least the indicators so far are suggesting it will. So now for another game, we're loading up Super Mario Run, at least the hometown of it, and we'll leave that for a period of time. This, as you almost definitely know, is one of the most popular games on both Android and iOS, so it's a pretty relevant example. After just 15 minutes, that's taken a pretty significant chunk of battery out of, first of all, the iPhone 8 Plus, and also the Galaxy Note8. The OnePlus 5 is more ahead than ever, let's pull it back up for another 15 and see if that makes a difference. As we're approaching the 2-hour mark, the iPhone 8 Plus is 12 percentage points behind the iPhone X. That is a gigantic difference given this much time. So now we're going to really kick this thing up a notch. We're going to accelerate this test by opening up the Antutu benchmark. So for the next hour or so, we're going to simulate ultra heavy usage by seeing what Antutu benchmark does to your battery. The short answer, quite a lot. What's also interesting to notice here is that actually consistently the iPhone X seems to be scoring quite a lot lower than the iPhone 8 Plus. Now that's more than likely going to be a software optimization thing, but it could also be just that higher resolution display requiring more power to push, and therefore the iPhone X performing less well, because spec-wise those two phones are more or less identical. As we're nearing the end of this Antutu section, you can start to see almost two bands forming. The iPhone X and the OnePlus 5 are kind of closely tied towards the top, and then the iPhone 8 Plus and the Galaxy Note8 are quite closely tied at the bottom. Now we're opening up the camera app. We're not necessarily recording anything yet, we're just going to see how much the constant search for a focal point is going to drain the juices. And the answer is, for the most part, not very much, except for on the iPhone 8 Plus, which within 10 minutes of just having the camera app open, loses a whole 6%, which is quite concerning and perhaps indicates it is accelerating downwards. And after that we're doing the same thing again, but all of these phones are going to record some video at 4K 30. And before we take the next reading, we're going to jump straight in to a session of Google Maps. Now location is off on all the phones, and there's no route guidance or anything going on here, so it's quite a low level task, but it is something that people are going to use regularly. After the next reading, it's almost as if the iPhone X is making a bit of a comeback. The gap between that and the OnePlus 5, instead of getting larger as you'd expect it to, just got smaller. And after another 20 minutes, the gap is still sitting at 4 percentage points between the two. That's not really a lot of difference. But now we're bringing out the big guns. Until at least the first phone fails, we're pulling up Geekbench 4. I'm letting it play through a CPU benchmark on each of the phones, and after it keeps finishing, I'll just keep restarting it. So let's see how that works. Now the iPhone 8 Plus starts to lose its battery very quickly. In fact, within about 25 minutes, it's gone from 15% to 0. And that makes it the first phone to buckle. The Note 8 though, bear in mind, is not very far behind with just 5% left, so let's see how much longer that one holds in. Even though the Note 8 is almost definitely going out next, it does have to be somewhat commended because it has just beaten a phone which has a far smaller, far lower resolution screen. And barely 10 minutes after the iPhone 8 Plus has gone, the Note 8 goes too. So it's sitting fairly comfortably in third place. To finish off the two remaining devices, we're once again jumping ship to Antutu, and we're going to skip more or less straight into the results. But just before we do that, if you haven't already entered the giveaway, be sure to do that now. That's all in the description below. And with that being said, let's get right into it. With a time of 4 hours and 26 minutes, the iPhone 8 Plus was in last place, which is almost a consistent trend unless you have the smaller iPhones in there too. 9 minutes later, at 4 hours and 35, the Note 8 falls too. A fairly respectable, but at the same time not fantastic performance. Lasting all the way up to 5 hours 2 minutes, the iPhone X really surprised me, in a good way. However, towards the end I did notice the iPhone X's battery slipping far quicker than the OnePlus 5's, and that made the OnePlus 5 the ultimate champion with 5 hours and 15. A fair bit ahead of the rest of the competition. Anyway guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'll catch you in the next one.